Hi, I'm Beth. They called it a family feast, but when my mom looked at me and snapped, "Cook or get out," that's when I knew I wasn't family anymore. She gave my recipe to Ed, told people I was ungrateful, bitter, crazy. But the truth? It was mine. All of it was mine. I left that night, but I didn't leave quietly. What I exposed, they'll never live down. What really happened? You'll see. The house hadn't changed. Not really. Sure, the paint was newer, the porch railings sturdier, and the lawn looked like someone actually cared now. But the moment I stepped out of my car and onto that driveway, I felt it. The old weight. Invisible, but familiar. Like a sweater I hadn't worn in years, but still remembered the itch. Inside, voices clattered like dishes, laughter layered with urgency. Thanksgiving had always been like this, too loud, too forced. I paused in the doorway. The scent of rosemary and burnt onions hit me first, followed by a chorus of "Beth's here" and "Oh, thank God she can help." Mom didn't hug me. She nodded from across the kitchen, wooden spoon in hand, already bossing Ed around like he hadn't been 40 for 10 years. Roxy offered me that same tight-lipped smile, the one that never reached her eyes. And Ed, he didn't even look up. Probably assumed I'd be elbow-deep in stuffing by now. I walked through the hallway slowly, eyes scanning the walls. The pictures were still there. Ed at prom, Roxy's baby shower, me, one grainy photo from high school, stuck behind a dried wreath. They hadn't changed, but I had. I was just settling into the couch when Roxy drifted over, faux casual. "So," she chirped, "you're still the best at stuffing, right? I didn't even bother trying. Figured you'd just do it." I smiled, politely, no teeth. "I wasn't planning on cooking today." "Oh, come on," she laughed. "You know where everything is." I glanced at the kitchen. Everything was moving fast. Pots boiling, timers beeping, Mom shouting something about undercooked yams. And in the middle of it all, there was a spot at the counter. My old spot. Mom turned her head. "Don't just stand there. Cook or get out of my kitchen." There it was. The line. The one that sliced clean through memory and landed straight in my gut. I looked around. No one said a word. Not Dad, who sat quietly reading the paper like he always did. Not Roxy. Not Ed. Just silence. Years ago, I'd skipped prom to help Mom with this feast. My date waited 2 hours in the driveway. I never got a thank you. Just a, "We got through it, didn't we?" I stepped into the kitchen, slowly, reached for a towel, then stopped. This wasn't about stuffing, or yams, or even this one day. It was every time I'd been expected to serve, to help, to stay quiet because that's what I'd always done. My college acceptance had been overshadowed by Ed's second divorce. My job promotions? Barely noticed. My own birthday last year? Forgotten entirely. They only valued me when I was useful, not when I was myself. I placed the towel back on the counter and walked to the far end of the table. Sat down. The room paused, like a dropped glass in a quiet church. Mom's voice broke through. "If you're not going to help, then go. We don't need dead weight here." Someone snorted. Nervously. Probably Ed. I stood up. Slow. Deliberate. I looked each of them in the eye. My mother, my siblings, even Dad. "You won't have to ask twice," I said. "I'm leaving, not just dinner, all of it." No one moved. No one said a damn thing. I grabbed my bag from the coat rack. The hallway felt longer than usual, echoing with a silence that wasn't new. But this time, I didn't fill it. I closed the door behind me. Quietly. From the car, I watched them through the window, still frozen, mid-preparation. Shocked, probably, maybe wondering if I was bluffing, but I wasn't. I wasn't crying. I wasn't angry. I wasn't anything but done. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for walking away. I felt light, like someone finally let the air back into my lungs. But there was a small ache, a truth I had to swallow. I gave them so many chances to see me, they never looked. As I drove away, I had no idea that my quiet exit would make the whole neighborhood whisper for weeks. I came home with nothing but my purse and a silence that clung to me like fog. No leftovers, no warm goodbye, just the click of my door locking behind me and the steady hum of my apartment heating up against the cold. I dropped my keys into the ceramic bowl near the entryway, one of the few gifts I'd ever gotten from Mom that wasn't backhanded. I put the kettle on, not because I wanted tea, but because my hands were shaking and I needed something to do. Tulsa was quiet that evening. My building, too. No kids running the halls, no footsteps overhead, just me and the echo of what I walked away from. My phone buzzed. 7 unread texts. 4 from Roxy, 3 from Ed, none from Mom. I didn't open any, not yet. I sat on the couch, tucking my legs under me. Thought back to the times I'd left family gatherings before. Each time they assumed I'd cool off and come crawling back, just like always. Give it a day or two, they'd say. She'll get over it. But this wasn't a timeout. This was a breakaway. Peace costs something, too. But so does pretending you're okay when you're not. I finally checked Roxy's first message. You really left? Then another. You could have handled that better. And the third. Just a heads up. Mom's been talking. Before I could ask what that meant, my phone lit up again. She was calling. I answered. Hey. Roxy didn't say hi. Look, I just wanted you to know. Mom's saying you screamed at her, that you made a huge scene. I sat upright. What? I didn't even raise my voice. I know. I was there, she said quickly, then softer. You know how she twists things. Twist. That word stung. I knew it too well. She's telling people I screamed? She's already told Aunt Denise. And Uncle Carl, too. Said you cursed her out and stormed out like a lunatic. A new message popped up from my cousin Marie. Heard what you did? Hope you're okay? No context, no questions. Just judgment, coded in fake concern. This wasn't about one night. This was about a legacy. A long line of quiet manipulation and carefully curated narratives. And now, I was the villain in the newest story they'd pass around like mashed potatoes. I hung up and sat back. The words lunatic, dramatic, ungrateful rang louder than the silence. Growing up, I was always too sensitive, too loud, too much. Anytime I stood up for myself, the reaction was the same. Shame, dismissal, silence. Even when I whispered, it was overreacting. I walked to the bookshelf and pulled out an old leather-bound journal. I hadn't opened it in years. Inside, an entry from when I was 21 stopped me cold. Argued with Mom again. She said I was selfish for wanting to go to grad school out of state, said I didn't care about the family. I didn't yell. I just said I needed space. She cried, told everyone I screamed. Same pattern, different decade. They hadn't changed. I'd just gotten better at hiding how much it hurt, but I wasn't hiding anymore. I grabbed a legal pad and pen, not to write a letter I'd send, just one I needed to write. For me, to lay it out. Every forgotten birthday. Every time I was told to be quiet. Every time my accomplishments were brushed aside while Ed's messes were handled like family emergencies. I wrote for an hour. I wrote until my throat tightened and my hand cramped. Then I stood in front of the mirror, letter in hand, and began to read it aloud. My voice cracked. I stumbled over parts. But I didn't stop. Don't shrink back this time, I told my reflection. And I wouldn't. If they wanted to spread stories, I'd spread the truth. Not with anger, but with facts. Receipts, evidence. I started pulling up old text threads, screenshots, voicemails, anything that painted the real picture. Not to hurt them, just to protect myself. I was skimming through a group chat from 2 Christmases ago when a knock echoed through the apartment. I froze. No one in my family showed up unannounced. Ever. Not without texting first. That was the rule, even for birthdays. I walked slowly to the door and looked through the peephole. Standing outside, holding a pie and fake concern, was the last person I expected to see. I wasn't ready. I opened the door slowly. Margot stood there, in the dim porch light, holding a pie with whipped topping melting at the edges. Her smile was wide, polished, like the kind people wear at family photo ops when nothing's really okay. She said, "Thought you might need some comfort food." Her voice soft, but the words clung. I let her in. Not because I forgave, because curiosity was stronger than fear. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and smoke, a mix of Thanksgiving leftovers and guilt. She placed the pie on the table, wiping her hands on a floral apron she probably stole from whatever charity sale. All warm tones, pretend helpful. She started talking about small things, the weather, how everyone misses you, how Mom keeps saying she wants closure, that maybe we can move on. But the tone, the look in her eyes, said something else. She kept hinting, between the lines, that I was the problem, that I'd brought this on myself. I sat across from her, heart pounding, noticing every detail, the cracked tile floor, the way light fell across her forehead. I opened my phone quietly and pressed record. I didn't want malice, just documentation. As she helped herself to a slice, I watched her hands, movement practiced, lips trembling into apology without admitting anything. Then she said it. "Mom's organizing a family meeting, wants people to see things her way, to understand the whole story, because you left like it was your choice." My chest tightened. That wasn't forgiveness. That was a setup. I cut the pie. It felt wrong to even touch it, like I was playing along in someone else's script. Margot glanced at me. "Family fixes things in person," she said, tone light. I didn't smile, didn't offer a bite. Hidden inside a napkin was a note, folded just right. I pulled it out. "Watch your tone." I stared. Not Margot's handwriting. Mom's. Sharp, slanted. That pie, fake kindness, was just a weapon. I felt the hurt. Quiet. Hot. Then something steady took over. Clarity. Margot stuttered. Tried to explain. "I didn't..." But her voice trailed. I played a voicemail on my phone. Margot's own voice, admitting to our friend how she wanted Mom to look good, how she planned to shift blame. Her words, precise and cold. Margot's face flushed. She looked torn. I looked back, calm. I said, "I'm not letting this be your story about me. I won't be the villain in someone else's tale." She opened her mouth but closed it. No reply. I didn't need her to agree, just needed to speak. She left. The door shut with a finality I felt in my bones. I sat in the quiet of my kitchen. The pie was untouched. My phone still recording. The note beside me. Silence. I stared at the pie. Saw not dessert, but betrayal. Not gift, but a message. Kindness turned to control. I wondered when I stopped trusting moments like this, when I stopped believing that a sweet gesture couldn't hide tension. I deleted the family group chat from my phone. My fingers hovered before I tapped send on a post I'd drafted. I rewrote it twice, then picked a few people, Carla, Merrick, sent them links, screenshots, and voice memos, told them the truth that they always assumed was mine, but never let me speak. I sat alone late, staring at my laptop. Draft open. Evidence laid out like strategy. My resolve was quiet, but growing. I would show up at that family meeting, this time with truth, with receipts. No more silence. I clicked a file on my desktop labeled Mom Dinner Rant. My finger hovered. I pressed play. Mom's voice crackled loud in the room. If she doesn't like how we do things, she can get out. My jaw tightened. My heart skipped. I knew I couldn't go backward, not after this. After Margot left, I stood in the stillness of my apartment, door latched tight, her scent still clinging to the entryway. The pie sat on the counter, untouched. Her fork was still on the edge of the plate, just barely used. That note, "Watch your tone," lay right beside it, sharp, deliberate. It wasn't even folded all the way back, like she knew I'd find it. I walked into the kitchen, slowly. Every creak of the floorboard felt louder. The refrigerator hummed. Pipes shifted in the walls. Normal sounds, but now they made my skin crawl. Betrayal turns a home into a trap. I sat down and stared at that pie like it could explain itself. It didn't. Margot's words played on repeat. Not what she said, but what she didn't. The careful phrases, the timing, the way she kept glancing at the pie like it had a job to do. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder app. Not to listen, not yet, but to remind myself it was real. That I wasn't imagining what I felt in that room. I moved to the couch, brought the pie with me, placed it like evidence on the coffee table. Cold, dense, decorative, like everything they ever offered me. I booted up my laptop, the screen lighting up the dim room. It was just after 8. I started pulling files, voice memos I'd recorded over the years, text messages, photos, proof. Not for them, for me, for anyone who might try to question why I walked away. I scrolled back to last Thanksgiving. A picture from the dining table. Everyone smiling, me at the edge, holding the mashed potatoes, not making eye contact. The caption said, "Beth, our quiet angel, always keeping things together." That wasn't a compliment. That was camouflage. I kept scrolling. Found a message from Margot just 2 days ago. "Everyone's talking." She'd forwarded it to Mom. I checked timestamps. 30 minutes after I walked out, I clicked on a file I didn't recognize. Just said, REC1125, auto. It was a mistake. Margot's phone must have picked it up in her purse. I pressed play. Mom's voice, clear as a bell. "If she doesn't cook tonight, she'll be a disgrace. And I'll make sure people know." My stomach dropped. I paused the recording, sat back, stared at the ceiling. It wasn't about the food. It never was. It was about control. About image. I'd been their easy target. The predictable one. The helper. The absorber. Why did I ever trust their version of me? "You're too emotional. Don't take everything so personally. You always make things harder than they need to be." I used to believe that. I swallowed it, molded myself around their comfort. I thought of something I read once, maybe Maya Angelou. You can't be what you can't see. Maybe that's why I always felt invisible. I kept waiting for someone to see me, to reflect me back. They never did. I opened my journal. Wrote, "Truth isn't loud. My proof is louder." I needed to hear someone else say it wasn't just in my head. I called Merrick. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, I need you to listen to something." I didn't wait. Played the clip. Silence. Then he said, "Beth, that's manipulation. Flat out." I nodded, though he couldn't see me. "Yeah. You okay?" "Not really, but I'm done pretending I am." I hung up, then opened a blank post on Facebook. I didn't go scorched earth, didn't rant. I just told the story. A short one, a memory, a meal, a pattern. I added the recording, not the worst part, just enough. I ended it with, Sometimes the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to stop whispering. I hovered over post, breathed in, waited. Then I clicked schedule, set it for 7 a.m. Morning coffee time, peak scrolling. I put the phone down and stood by the window. Tulsa was quiet, my street still, nothing dramatic. But inside me, things were shifting. A few hours later, my phone buzzed. 5 notifications, then 10, then a comment. From Mom, public. This isn't how we do things in a Thorne family. I stared at her words. My fingers trembled. But I didn't delete the post. I didn't shrink. For the first time in my life, I wasn't silent. And I wasn't sorry. I woke before dawn. My apartment was dark, the quiet heavier than sleep. My phone lay on the nightstand, screen dim. I didn't glance at it first. I waited for the creak of floorboards, the low hum of morning traffic. I waited for the world's reactions. When I looked, I'd missed dozens of messages. My post from last night had exploded. Supportive comments, family members trying to calm things, even distant acquaintances tagging me. One said, "Family matters should stay in the family." Another from an aunt, "Today's women lacking grace." Thinly veiled scorn wrapped in the language of tradition. I didn't respond. Words now felt like ammunition, and I wasn't planning to bleed. I poured coffee. Black. I held the mug with both hands, letting warmth spread through my palms, trying to feel anchored. I scrolled past the harshest comments, then paused at the ones that said, "You have to be proud," those I saved. Screenshot. Quiet validation. I leaned back and thought, I used to believe silence was surrender. Now I believe it can be strategy. When the sun hit the window, I opened my direct messages. Carla had sent something, a voice memo from years ago, Christmas dinner. She was laughing in it, children in the background. And then Mom, clear and sharp. Single Beth, always waiting, can't get married, can't stay put. Belittling tone. Casual, but cruel. I pressed play again. Felt flush. Heat in my ears. My cheeks pricked. That voice had stung in my memory. Hearing it here was like biting into old stone. Carla's message kept going. Thank you for being brave. You didn't just stand up for yourself. You stood up for me too. I closed my eyes and let that settle. I wasn't alone. I'd thought for so long I was. Around midday, I left my apartment for the cafe we sometimes used in town. Merrick was already there, waiting in a corner booth, wooden coffee table worn from decades of hands resting on it. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He must have seen the message snapshot I sent. "Do you want revenge or release?" he asked, voice rough. I looked at my reflection in the window, someone I barely recognized, someone tired but sharpened. "Neither," I said. "I want accountability. I want to stop bleeding for their comfort." My voice had weight I hadn't known I carried. He nodded. "Let them talk. But when you speak next, make it undeniable." We sat in the cafe, coffee steam rising, conversation sparse but potent. We talked about the memo, the backlash, what truth looked like when scattered across texts and whispers. I felt empowered, like I'd found tools I'd forgotten I had. Logic, proof, edges of courage. I left the cafe not feeling stronger exactly, but determined. Back home, I sat at my desk, old photos spread out, voice memos queued. I recorded myself describing who I was, a history of helping hands, cooking for thankless diners, of invisibility, of being the quiet one who cleans up everyone else's mess. I added snippets. I have receipts. I included things I once thought private, the drafts of recipes Mom claimed, my grocery lists, my nights perfecting flavors alone. I paused a lot, thought about how many times I held my tongue. Then I called Carla and Merrick, played bits of the evidence, heard their voices catch, their affirmation steady. I realized then, this isn't retaliation, it's declaration. By evening, the video post was ready. I didn't go wild, I didn't shout. I told a story. Mine. Simple. Honest. I scheduled it to go live at 7 in the morning coffee time, peak scrolling. I wanted people to see truth before breakfast. My laptop dinged. 5 notifications already. Likes, shares, comments. Supportive and skeptical, but visible. Then one popped up from Mom in the thread. You think putting this online makes you strong? We see everything. My heart jumped. I closed the laptop, sat in silence. My hands shook a little. I didn't delete the post. I didn't smooth it over. For once, I let the echo of my own voice linger. They weren't just watching. They were warning me. And that meant my words had weight. I woke 2 evenings after the video went public, carrying anticipation like a weight. Tulsa's twilight settled against my windows. Streetlights glinted off wet pavement from earlier rain. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications, shares, messages. Some kind words, some whispers. I sat in my usual pew at church, letting the sermon wash over me. Speak truth with love, the pastor said, pulling phrases that felt meant for me. I clenched my jaw, because love was already tangled with betrayal. When folks whispered, I saw your post, strong words, but good. I held my face even as my heart pounded. A deacon, Mrs. Hawthorne, leaned over and said quietly, We respect you, Beth, but sometimes family hurts hardest. I nodded. The church bulletin board had a flyer for Thanksgiving preview night. My absence from the feast made that flyer sting. That photograph of the table, with Mom's proud posture, Ed's laugh, Roxy's half smile. My ghost smile missing. Pride battled shame in my chest. I decided I will not let my story be erased. A text from Ross flicked in. Mom published the recipe book, he said. I opened the community newsletter online. There it was, turkey recipe attributed to Mom, stuffing credited to Ed's kitchen, the desserts credited to Roxy. My name nowhere. Comments poured in. That book looks nice. Hope Beth helped. They made it beautiful. Anger rose like bile, amusement at how invisible I still was, how helping meant doing everything and getting nothing but whispers. I remembered nights spent perfecting flavors, hours peeling potatoes, tweaking seasonings, now erased in plain sight. Decision sharpened inside me. This isn't just about recipes, it's about claiming ownership of my labor. Tonight, they already tried to write me out. I won't let them finish the story without me. That night, I mapped out what I would do. Letters to local newspaper, social media follow-ups, proof of drafts, and grocery receipts. I called Carla and Merrick. Carla's voice shook with support. Merrick asked questions I'd already answered in my head. What proof can't they deny? I gathered pictures, old drafts where my handwriting showed in margins, texts asking me to taste and adjust recipes. I rehearsed speaking at the community meeting. My throat tightened at thank yous, but I knew the words would matter. When the meeting came, the hall was full. I stepped up with the recipe book in hand, skin prickled. Mom was speaking first, praising Ed's leadership, Roxy's dessert displays, no mention of me. Applause. The room warm with light. My turn. My heart hammered. I paused. Then I held up my notebook, with edits I made, grocery notes, photos of me in the kitchen, proof I'd been cooking, been tasting, been caring. You may think this is about turkey and stuffing, I said. It's not. It's about truth. The crowd murmured. Some shifted uncomfortably. Mom's face hardened. Ed's expression flickered. I refused applause. I stepped down, voice firm, controlled. When I left the stage, someone handed me a flyer. Bright, glossy. Thanksgiving preview, featuring Ed's Kitchen Roxy's Desserts. My name was missing. I stood in the lobby, hand trembling around the paper. Carla's eyes met mine from across the room, wide, alive, shame, confusion, pride, all mingled in that moment. People watched, whispered. I exhaled. I pushed open the doors to the meeting hall before the crowd filled the seats. The lights were bright, too bright, and the smell of fresh tablecloths and polished silverware prickled at my skin. A large banner read, "Preview Night." Pictures of gleaming dishes I'd tasted, recipes I'd perfected. I carried the folder with me, its weight exact, drafts, voice memos, receipts. My hands trembled slightly as I shook hands with a woman I barely knew. She smiled, too wide. Someone behind me whispered. She came prepared. I nodded, body tight. I thought that telling truth in public would feel like freedom, but standing here it felt more like stepping into a war zone. My heart pounded, mind steady. Facts, not fury. I would not let them rewrite this moment. Mom walked up to the podium, face composed, arms lifted as if she were offering praise. She introduced Ed, emphasized his artistry in the dessert section, praised Roxy for her graceful touches. My name was absent, so were my years. And the applause was polite, rehearsed. People smiled, cameras clicked. My throat felt tight. Then she unveiled the commemorative pie. She called it Beth's recipe tradition, attributing it to Ed. Laughter, light. I felt something inside me lock. This was the moment. I raised my voice. Actually, that pie's recipe came from my notebook draft. Silence. Heat in their eyes. I slid out the draft, showed grocery receipts with my handwriting, photos of me in the kitchen, that notebook margin with my voice. Ed's face shifted. Mom's eyes narrowed. I wasn't yelling, just speaking what I'd held all these years. Murmurs spread like wildfire through the hall. Someone stood up. I've eaten your stuffing, Beth. Thank you. An older neighbor, stooped with age, nodded in agreement. Mom stuttered, tried to regain control. We meant to honor tradition, but I held my ground, my voice firm. You honored tradition by erasing the person who built it. They could hold applause. They could sympathize, but they could no longer pretend I didn't exist. My words echoed, not loud, but undeniable. Faces softened. Some turned away. Some stood still. My shame lifted, replaced by a fierce clarity I'd reserved for emergencies. I stepped off the stage, clutching evidence. Carla's eyes found mine in the crowd. Ross gripped my hand. Merrick looked proud, sharp. I didn't look for forgiveness. I wanted acknowledgement that the work I'd done, the meals I'd cooked, the nights spent perfecting flavors were mine. I felt small, sure, but also expansive. People I didn't expect were watching, leaning in, some with pity, some with respect. My legs throbbed from standing, my heart from speaking. But I stood. I walked through the crowd, accepting quiet nods, stiff handshakes. Victory tasted bitter, because the wounds were fresh. Back home, too late to see out the night, I set my phone on the table. It buzzed. A group chat titled Family Preview Night Feedback. I saw one message, Moms. You stole our attention tonight. Not congratulations, not we're sorry. Just this. I stared at the screen. My chest ached. Not from missing her words, but from knowing how long I waited for them. I didn't respond. I didn't craft a reply. I let the words hang in the air like broken glass. I woke before sunrise, the first chirp of light through my curtains. My phone lit up immediately. Notifications, shares, friend tags. A local news page had posted a clip of last night's meeting, me clear and steady, speaking truths Mom tried to bury. I sat at my kitchen table, coffee cooling, reviewing screenshots. Supporters saying, finally, skeptics asking, is it really her work? My fingers traced photo after photo, Me in the kitchen, me cooking late, family photos where I stood in shadows. Memory flash, nights alone, chopping vegetables, tasting spices, mom saying, "Beth, you're just too private." That phrase always stung, but this moment, it belonged to all the silent moments I held back. I wasn't just being seen now, I was being heard. Carla posted a split image. One side, me cooking Thanksgiving meal 10 years ago. The other, mom praising Ed over the same dishes. Caption read, "You always made it for us." Neighbors tagged my name. Comments poured. I always wondered, how did I never know this? Some defended Ed, others recoiled at mom's claim. A text popped up from mom. "Stop dragging family names." I read it with quiet triumph, chest thrumming. The work I thought invisible was now visible. Faces from the past were speaking out. For me, vindication carried a strange weight. It wasn't just joy, it was shock that what I made in private now startled their mirror. Then came something I never expected. A brown envelope slipped under my door. The county records office had filed a deed, a document naming me as full owner of the land beneath Mom's event center. I held it with trembling fingers. More than soil and square feet, it was legacy. I remembered Mom saying once, "This land is ours, but for show." She meant just that, show. I'd been told all my life that certain things weren't mine while standing on what already was. Ownership wasn't proof, but it was a barrier no one could dismiss. Justice, cold and crisp. I logged back into my profile, posted pictures with the deed, voice memo from last week, snippets of that split image. I addressed Mom in the caption, "Truth is not what someone tells others, it's what's documented." I kept my voice calm. Evidence did most of the shouting. Some family messages came in privately. "I didn't know." "I'm sorry. Can we talk?" Others disappeared. A local reporter messaged, "Do you want an apology?" I answered, "I want recognition, enough to stop this from happening again." Evening settled soft and cool. I walked outside into my backyard, porch light casting long shadows. I looked up at the first stars, breathing in the air heavy with relief and sorrow both. Then my phone buzzed. Mom again. "You have changed everything, Beth." No apology. No admission. Just that. I read it once, twice, then closed my eyes. Some walls never fall, even when truth is exposed. And yet, I felt new strength growing where silence used to live. It's been 30 days since the meeting, the unveiling, the final cold message. And while the dust has mostly settled, I still catch the occasional ripple in quiet corners of life. At the grocery store, someone lingers too long in the same aisle. At the diner, a waitress brings my coffee without asking and says, "Good to see you, Beth." But it's not about them. The change I notice the most isn't out there. It's in me. My shoulders sit straighter. My smile comes easier. There's no longer a war between what I know and what I say out loud. I move slower these days, not because I'm tired, but because I'm not rushing to prove anything. Peace, it turns out, isn't loud. It's not applause or headlines. It's when you walk into a room and don't brace for impact. It seeps in when you stop chasing validation and start living from your own rhythm. A week ago, I packed a small bag and drove to a town I'd always been curious about. 2 hours east, quiet, known for its family-owned kitchens. The kind of place where folks pass down their best recipes on wrinkled index cards. I found a supper club that met once a week, mostly women older than me, kind eyes, soft voices. They welcomed me like I'd been there forever. That night, I brought my sweet corn story pie, the same one Mom claimed was Ed's, the one that was mine from the beginning. I didn't say anything when I laid it on the table, just waited. The women took their bites and hummed the kind of sound you can't fake. One leaned toward me and said, "Honey, that tastes like forgiveness." Something in me cracked, but not in pain. It was release. It was knowing my food had never needed their name to matter. I gave them the recipe without hesitation. I wanted it to live on, not as proof, but as gift. Back home, I found a letter in the mail, postmarked days after the town meeting. I knew the handwriting. Mom. My fingers hesitated at the flap. I expected anger, deflection. Instead, I got memory. She wrote about the first time she saw me watching Julia Child on PBS, wide-eyed in front of the television, mimicking every motion with a plastic spatula. She admitted her jealousy, her fear that I might forget where I came from if people saw my gifts. "You didn't forget," she wrote. "You built where I never dared." I sat with that letter for a long time. I didn't cry out of sadness. I cried because I hadn't expected honesty. And when it came, it didn't justify. It just existed. That was enough. 2 Saturdays later, I hosted my first community dinner in the hall that used to be hers. My name was now on the deed, but the heart of the event didn't belong to me alone. It belonged to everyone who walked through those doors. Neighbors, distant cousins, folks who'd once doubted. Carla brought her teenage daughter. Merrick arrived with peach cobbler. Ross handled the playlist. There was no speech, no spotlight, just a handwritten menu taped to the entrance that read, "Cook or get out." I cooked. Everyone brought something. No judgment, no comparison. I served last, but I served with pride. I looked out and saw people passing plates, laughing between bites, reaching for seconds. That's what healing looked like. Not a single moment, but shared ones. Later that night, after the last dish was cleaned and the lights dimmed, I walked the hall alone. I passed Mom's old framed quote near the kitchen door. "The kitchen remembers everything." I stopped, fingers brushing the frame. "I know," I whispered. "And now I choose what it remembers."